Before we resume our meeting, I'd just like to thank everybody here, the PTAs, the singers. We are very grateful, all of us. We appreciate that. We serve because we love to serve. There's no doubt about it. I always contend that you should be honoring our families because they're the ones that really sacrifice for our service. But you know, that's just my 2 cents. All right, we're up to items for information, I believe. Right.
Yeah, there are 2 of them.
Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, we just, I'll ask Mr. Bartels actually to just give a very brief update on the Covert Gymnasium. Just for those of you who may not be aware, the Covert Gymnasium floor is out of service. We are having to replace it. It was damaged earlier in the year, and we've gotten our insurance company involved, and we are in the process of replacing it. So maybe you could just review the status of where we are, Mr. Bartels?
Sure. We've had to do an abatement on the floor after it was demolished. The top coat was taken off, and we had to do an abatement on everything underneath of it. That's been completed. We have a moisture barrier that's being installed over the slab. That was complete. Now we have floor leveling that's in progress. The new floor installation should begin shortly, and we're expecting that to be completed by November 10th.
And that abatement was done over break? No
Yes.
students were in the building, no parent, no teachers, no anybody, so it was done over
a 3-day weekend.
Over the 3-day weekend,
right.
24, whatever it took them
Right.
into the night. But we just want to assure everybody that was not done when anybody was in the
Right.
building. And
And we did get air testing
We have
done
the air
and
tested
cleared
prior to that.
before anybody came back, yes.
Thank you. Right. Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, I'm ready to turn this right over to Dr. Leahy. Many of you have heard lots about SEL. Rockville Center is very much involved in it. And Dr. Leahy has a brief presentation that she would like to provide to the board and the community.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. So I'm here tonight to update the board and the public on some recent legislation that mandates some changes to our mental health instruction and addresses mental health issues in schools. The World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of well-being, where people realize their potential, where people can cope with normal stressors, they can work productively, fruitfully, and they're able to make contributions to their community. Now, to really embrace that definition and to understand it, you really, and appreciate it, there's a little bit of a cultural shift that has to happen. And it basically means that you have to view mental health as a very integral part of overall health. The New York State Ed Department always realized the multidimensionality of health and health education, including mental health. However, the statutes in the state were not entirely clear. This new legislation was really born of a partnership between the State Ed Department, the legislators, and the Office of Mental Health that supported the effort by putting together a Mental Health Advisory Council. And the new legislation basically says that public education has to kind of keep a pace with our understanding and treatment of the mental health issues that are going on. We were pretty successful in addressing public health concerns like smoking, drug use, alcohol, and some avoidance of certain cancers. And we did that by educating adults and students about those dangers. So equally critical, but missing up until this point, was addressing mental health issues to the extent that was satisfactory. The theory is that with this legislation, by ensuring that students learn about mental health, they'll be able to better recognize the signs and then either seek help for others or themselves. So under the new mental health legislation, school districts are asked to explicitly instruct students on mental health and highlight the relationship between mental health and physical health. That instruction is supposed to be designed to enhance students' understanding, their attitudes, their behaviors, promote health, well-being, and human dignity, with the hope that students, staff, families, community will all be more open to discussing mental health issues and address awareness, prevention, and treatment. So why now? Well, schools all over the country are responding to episodes of school violence, bullying, subsequent anti-bullying legislation, and increases in self-injurious behaviors in young people. Nationwide, 1 in 5 people in the United States will be diagnosed with a mental illness over the course of any given year. 61.5 million people. Leading that is, of course, anxiety and depression. Among youth, the most common lifetime prevalence rates are in anxiety and behavior-related disorders. We also know that mental illness begins early in life. 50% of all chronic mental health conditions begin by age 14, 75% by age 24, 50% of all lifetime cases of anxiety begin as early as age 8, and 20%, again, 1 in 5 of our youth between the ages of 13 and 18 will have a mental illness. And then 50% of the students age 14 and older that have a mental illness drop out of schools. So all of those statistics were very sobering. Worse yet, about 157,000 youth every year are treated in emergency rooms for self-inflicted injuries. 1 in 12 attempt suicide, and 1 in 6 seriously consider it. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people ages 10 to 24. Because of the perceived stigma of mental illness, many people don't seek treatment at all, or if they do, they delay it. The statistics show that 2 out of 3 adults who need mental health services don't seek them at all. Of those who get treatment, 50% have waited 10 years or more. And then only 10% of people that have substance abuse disorders receive treatment. There are obvious consequences to untreated mental health disorders, and the state recognized that as well and found them untenable. They included poor long-term function, increase in suicide and depression, loss of functioning on the job, dropping out of school, increased use of substances, loss of self-esteem, and so on. So what are they asking schools to do? There's actually several areas they're asking schools to address, school districts to address. First, they're asking schools to improve mental health instruction by reviewing and assessing current curriculum and making sure that mental health education requirements that align with the new legislation are incorporated. They're also asking schools to implement social emotional learning programs and to strengthen the relationship between the PPS staff, psychologists, social workers, school counselors, and teachers, so everyone becomes more aware and adept in recognizing signs. They're also asking schools to support a positive school climate and to develop school and community partnerships, work with families and community members in identifying strategies to help kids to better deal with stressors of life. And then finally, take advantage of mental health partnerships. Just today, I had a BOCES representative reach out to me and ask me if I wanted to work with the Office of Mental Health, Dr. Max Benolivia, who's an expert in suicide, and coming up with some shared service. So that's the type of thing that's going on. The lessons that we are incorporating, that's explicit health instruction, are very specifically defined. They want us students to understand mental health and mental illness and find out information on very specific mental illnesses. What are the experiences should you have a mental illness? Have discussions about the stigma and try to lift that stigma, and learn how to seek and help and find support, and of course, the importance of good mental health. So what are we doing in Rockville Center? I mentioned all of the things that this law encompasses, and the first is mental health instruction. So a team of elementary and health teachers that helped develop the K-5 health curriculum will now do a crosswalk between our current health curriculum and the state mandates to ensure compliance, but also to ensure that the instruction is skill-oriented, developmental, that it's sequential, that the skills are practiced by students, and that they're also shared with family and community. We're going to expand our current practices in physical education classes. For example, infused in our K-12 phys ed program is a health question of the day, typically done during warm-ups. Those health questions of the day have a lot to do with health and nutrition and movement. Now they are going to include more information on mental health, mindfulness. And this instruction will occur, as I said, during warm-ups, but in every class. We're going to continue to stress the importance of mind-body connections. There's already in place programs that connect the two, but that'll be an emphasis this year as well. And finally, we're just going to continue a very comprehensive mental health wellness approach in the district. The second aspect that we have to look at is social-emotional learning. So social-emotional learning is a process through which we acquire skills necessary to understand and manage our emotions, learn how to set goals, to feel empathy, and establish relationships, make positive decisions. And based on that definition, we can see that social-emotional learning would have a very important role in making schools safe and maintaining a positive school climate. They didn't come up with this stuff out of thin air. They've done a lot of research in the benefits of social-emotional learning. They found that students that receive social-emotional instruction have higher achievement, they have better attitudes, they're motivated to learn, they have a commitment to school, they become more engaged, there's fewer negative behaviors, they become less depressed and anxious, and less apt to withdraw socially. So social-emotional learning has 5 competencies as defined by the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, or CASEL. And CASEL has a wonderful website. If you have some time to check it out, it's a great source of resources to learn more about this. But the 5 competencies that are included in social-emotional learning are self-awareness, which means by which you identify emotions, you recognize your strengths, you develop self-confidence and self-efficacy, self-management that helps students with their impulse control, their self-management, their goal setting, their organizational skills. Social awareness is ability to have perspective, empathy, appreciate diversity, and respect for others. Relationship skills, that's communication, building relationships, working cooperatively, resolving conflicts, and so forth. And then finally, responsible decision-making. And those 5 competents are kind of developmentally in the order that they're developed. You know, perhaps one of the most important ones for us is relationships and the ability to develop them, communicate clearly, work cooperatively, resolve conflicts, both within, between students and between students and staff. In the summer of 2017, we got a little bit of a jump on this law, and I didn't think I mentioned that the law went into place on July 1st, 2018. But in the summer of 2017, we had a social-emotional learning curriculum writing project. And what we did was take a look at all the programs out there, the evidence-based programs that we can use to teach the competencies that I just described. We put them together in a little brochure that should have been on the table on the outside, just so you have an idea. It gives you a little bit of the information I just gave out, and it gives you an idea of at what levels your children will be learning these competencies and what programs. In the elementary schools, we introduced a program called Sanford Harmony about, I would say now, 4 to 5 years. Chris, you had Dr. Pelletieri, about 5 years ago. And that's the program that we use in the classrooms, kindergarten through 5th grade. And we've actually been conducting professional development with the teachers to learn how to use the program and the PPS staff. In the middle school, we use a program called Second Step, which is also a character building social-emotional learning program. And in the high school, we developed our own curriculum, social-emotional learning curriculum. And those lessons are given as push-ins to 9th grade about once a month in different subjects. In addition to this, we do a number of other things that promote social-emotional learning, mental health awareness, character education, and there's 2 slides in the elementary school. I won't read them all off, but suffice to say, they're addressing bullying, they're addressing social skill development, they're addressing kindness and character building. Of course, the mandated training, mental health faculty training, the annual DASA training, that's all in there. We have clubs and organizations within the district that have the older kids working with the younger kids, like athletes helping athletes. Pledges, contracts. Red Ribbon Week addresses substance use. We have Inclusive Schools Week and Autism Awareness Week, it's actually Autism Awareness Month, where we talk about activities that promote an understanding of students that learn differently, celebrations of friendship. In the middle school, again, mental health faculty training, daily reminders of the golden rule. The middle school also emphasizes service learning projects. They do fundraisers for schools in Africa, Puerto Rican Relief Fund, mindfulness training. We've worked with the ACLU and became a no place for hate school, both in the middle school and the high school. High school has brought in speakers. We have Liberty Partnership, public service announcements, inspirational speakers came last year. He's coming back this year. David Flood, he was excellent. We recognize Black History Month, and again, Inclusive Schools Week, autism awareness. So even though the focus of this legislation is, and our efforts have centered around students, we recognize that we can't help students to feel to reach these goals of awareness and prevention and treatment of mental health and social emotional learning if our staff doesn't also get taken care of. It's kind of scary to me that reading some statistics like that in 2016, the percentage of teachers who said their mental health was not good for 7 or more of the previous 30 days was 58%, which was up from 34% in 2015. So I just feel like it's just getting, and anyone that's a teacher in the room I see kind of nodding. So we are addressing their well-being with our mindfulness initiative, which Mr. Pelletieri is going to talk about for a few minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Leahy. If you want to just go to the next slide. So mindfulness is a word that we hear a lot lately. Past year or so, people open up mindfulness shops and mindfulness conferences. And so what is mindfulness? It's really this idea of being in the moment now. Let's not get caught up in what is going to happen or changes that are going to happen in the future or things that we can't control. But let's slow things down and try to be mindful about what's happening right now and what we can control. And we brought in a mindfulness expert, actually a graduate of Southside High School. She went through our entire system, very proud of her, Emily Hersland, and she is a mindfulness trainer. She was brought to me by one of our folks who went out and did some mindfulness training on her own a couple of summers ago. And Emily came back, saw her teachers. It was really, really nice to see her working with teachers that she was working with as a youngster. And now we put about 80 or so adults in our high school auditorium. We replicated it with the middle school and then did it again with our elementary teachers a couple of years ago, last year around, you can go to the next slide, Noreen, around professional development at a superintendent's conference day. And I had this plan that we were going to train up everybody and right away start with kids and mindfulness and getting kids mindful practices. And Emily, rightly so, said, let's work with the staff first, let's work with the teachers and give them some practices so that they can actually embody what mindfulness looks like in the classroom. And then the second year, and that's now our second year, we'll start to talk about some tools they can use with our students. So again, gave all of our teachers mindfulness approaches for themselves, our administrators as well, and we moved it forward for our administrators. We are starting to share mindfulness techniques with our students. It's going to be happening in the next few weeks of the mindfulness professional development that takes place. And if you'll indulge me for, 30 seconds, I'm going to give you a mindfulness technique that I use almost every day when I get stuck on Peninsula Boulevard at that one red light by North Village. You cannot catch that light coming off of Southern State. You can't. I challenge anyone to do it. I challenge anyone to make that light. So here's something that I learned that was a practice, and it's very simple. So you're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. You're going to hold it for 7 seconds, and then you're going to release it over 8 seconds. So we got that? We're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 7, and release over 8 seconds. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, so if you don't pass out from that, which you really shouldn't, it should just bring a little, like the calm in the room. That's just a simple technique. So I do that at that red light instead of banging on the horn or banging my head. I do that at that red light. And instead of getting to work stressed, as many of us do from commutes and things like that, I try to be calm and recognize I can't control that light no matter what I do. I can't make it. I'm not going to try. So if you live on North Village there, you don't have to worry about me trying to get through that light. But it just brings a sense of calm to you, and be in that moment at that time and recognize what you can do. And so that's a very simple technique. One of the things that we share with our teachers that we'll be sharing with our students. It's a mindful practice to be grounded in what we're doing in our classes. We want to give our students mindful moments and recognize those opportunities as well. And to start to practice a mindfulness and a calmness about ourselves. So that's where our initiative stands right now.
Thank you, Dr. Peltieri. Okay, the next aspect I talked about was school climate. And that's just a way that creates a sense of safety and acceptance for students. And it really, in turn, affects their ability to be successful. So positive school climate helps students nurture relationships with teachers, and as I said, is a predictor of student achievement. It's so important to the state that they recognize the 4 dimensions of school climate, they being safety, relationships, teaching and learning, and institutional environment. They piloted a study last year, and Rockville Center participated, where we were able to assess the way students, faculty, and parents felt about the school climate and district climate. It is going to be one of 3 indicators that goes into a social emotional feeling or criteria that they're going to establish statewide, and I think it's going to be mandated in either the 1920 or the 2021 school year. Of course, there's a recognition that social emotional learning and mental health awareness begins at home. And we really need the school and family and community connections that the state talks about as well. We acquire the skills maybe in the classroom. We help to hone those skills, and much of the instruction that I discussed earlier. It's reinforced in extracurricular activities and service learning programs and projects and whatnot. But the school has to reach out to the community and families in order to really make this stick. Our professional development with our teachers, and the mindfulness that Chris mentioned, teaching teachers about Sanford Harmony. We have some executive functioning professional development, so we have teachers understand a lot of the ways that kids develop and their brains develop. That's all part of it as well. So there's things they call mental health stressors, and it's important that the school staff recognize them, students recognize them, families and community members. And mental health stressors are things like overscheduling of kids, their fear of missing out, some academic performance pressures, lack of sleep, parental or family conflict, maybe too much emphasis on athletics or maybe pressure on athletics, of course social media, and excessive screen time. And it's really critically important that adults actually model that positive physical and mental health that we want our kids to emulate. What we do in front of babies, toddlers, and adolescents sticks. How we use our cell phones. We're seeing an increase in the amount of kids coming in with deficits in expressive and receptive language, because mommy or daddy is pushing the stroller while talking on their cell phone and not talking to the baby in the carriage. Whether or not you drink in front of your children, how you talk to them, what your temperament is like, and whether or not you set and reach goals. All a part of what kids are seeing. Parents and families and community can help us by modeling proper exercise, proper nutrition, rest, setting goals. So I can't really touch upon all the factors affecting mental health in our youth, because there are many. But I'm going to just talk about a couple heavy hitters. The first of which is smartphones and social media. In just 5 years, between 2010 and 15, the number of teens who felt useless, joyless, which are classic symptoms of depression, increased by 33%. Teen suicide increased by 23%. The number of 13 to 18-year-olds who committed suicide jumped 31%. Those increases cross socioeconomic barriers, racial, ethnic, geographic boundaries. So iGen, that's a generation of kids we're talking about, born after 1995, are now more likely to experience a mental health issue than their millennial predecessors. So why were so many teens feeling depressed during this time period? So many researchers believe, and have found in research, that the likely culprit was the very sudden ascendance of the smartphone. By 2012, 50% of kids had smartphones. 2015, it went up to 73%. And I just looked it up today, what the current rate is, and it's estimated to be 92% of teenagers own smartphones. And during that same period, in case you were wondering, the time spent on homework barely budged according to this research. So they discounted and ruled out academic pressure as a cause. So what we worry about with these kids is actual addiction to their cell phone use. They're extremely vulnerable to developing a cell phone addiction because this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex right here, this part of the brain does not develop in children and young adults until the age of 25. Ours are all developed, right? But theirs are not. Adolescents who become dependent on their smartphones could experience negative alterations in their behaviors, and it actually decreases brain connectivity. So the problem occurs in the part of the brain responsible, this part of the brain, for decision-making and problem-solving and impulse control and emotional regulation. So it's actually doing damage to this part of the brain, the very part of the brain we want to develop for all those skills in social-emotional learning that I talked about. And smartphone addiction predisposes kids, and they're more likely to drink, take drugs, and make poor choices. So I actually read these to my 20-somethings at home the other night, and I said, how many of these can you own? And they both got a little bit frightened because they owned a lot of them. So we have to really, I mean, I'm saying this in all seriousness, we want to take a look at this and whether or not we're really monitoring our adolescents' use of these phones. These cell phone addictions are ruining relationships, the kids are having car accidents, they're increasing mental health issues, and we're worried that kids, adolescents, young adults are living life through their phones. So what can we do? We certainly can examine our own practices. We've talked on and on about limiting screen time, charging iPads and phones outside of their bedrooms, no screens 1 hour before bedtime if it's possible, increase exposure to greenery, nature, and sunlight, incorporate more movement, and practice mindfulness. Dr. Pelletieri, for you. Bonding, human touch, empathy, and love, very important. Even toning down the brightness of the devices has been found to work, and manage Wi-Fi access, because you do have control. And the final one, in bold, please delay the purchase of smartphones for as long as possible. The 5th grade, moving up, gift of giving kids smartphones, it's time we really take a stand against that. I understand people are worried about children's safety. That little picture there is called a gizmo, about $179, put out by Verizon. You can put 12 phone numbers in it. You can even track your kids like a GPS tracker. The 12 phone numbers you authorize, they can text those 12 phone numbers, but they don't have access to social media. They don't have a computer in their pocket. And then finally, the last heavy hitter, of course, is substance use and what develops as a result. It's a $64,000 question. Does substance use result from mental illness, or does mental illness result from substance use? And so we have to be very mindful of that. And so on Saturday, this Saturday, October 20th, we're hosting our annual Family Fun Fitness Fair. It's really going to be an amazing event this year. We've gotten away from the walkathon and really emphasized community resources. Going to be about 40 vendors, all kinds of doctors, dentists, nutritionists, masseuse, yoga. The phys ed department is going to have clinics, soccer, lacrosse, rope course, all kinds of things. Please come, bring children, young children especially. And what we want to take away with from Saturday is just the message that there are healthy alternatives, positive alternatives, natural highs in some of the things that we'll be promoting that day. Any questions?
No pre-registration for that day or anything, right, Noreen? For the wellness fair, just show up at the middle school. If the parking lot's full, the temple
Temple parking.
will let us on a Saturday.
Not the Temple, St. Agnes.
St. Agnes' lot is open. And then you can walk over. Thank you, Noreen. Thank you, Dr. Leahy and Dr. Pelletier. Okay, items for discussion. We're on to our policies. Any questions? 7580, education of students, temporary housing. Are you looking?
I did, I'm sorry.
That's, take your time,
This
take your
one,
time.
yeah. I know. The one with the letter A.
The one with the most
The one
red.
with the letter A.
So can we just get some background on where the changes came from? Are they kind of pushed down from the state, or?
This is definitely, this reflects changes in the law and changes in essay.
Okay. Just on the first page, we talk about in A, I'm sorry, well, B, homeless child means, and then down below, there's a migratory child who qualifies as homeless. And then on the second page in C, we kind of are repeating that again. I didn't know if we should be doing that, or if in one place it was enough. It was just a question.
So you're saying
Seems like
C
the
on
same.
page 2?
It's the same words.
It's repetitive.
Yeah. And my other question is, for the elementary schools, how do we select which school the child is assigned to with the thought process of they might not be with us, we don't know how long they might be with us, or they may be with us for a long time, but maybe changing residences in the K-5 period of time? How do we select where they end up going?
So the child is initially placed in the school zone where they are living temporarily. If it's a hotel or a relative's house, they're placed in that school. The spirit of this law is that we don't keep moving kids from school to school, and we stabilize their education as much as possible. So even if they start to move within the district, we're very, very mindful of trying to keep them within one school, one elementary zone.
Good.
And they're also protected should they move to another temporary housing outside the district.
Okay, thank you. That was it for me.
Any other questions? $54.13, procurement, uniform grant guidance for federal awards. Any questions? No? All right, we move it along. Stage 2, we're at 7512, student physicals.
So, Mr. O'Shea, if we could just go back to the grant guidance for a second. The reason, that's a new policy, and the reason why it's on is that the district has been identified as a district that's going to have a grant review, and they asked for some information, one of which was our policy on a guidance on federal grants, procurement policy for federal grants in particular. And when in our current policies didn't specifically address the federal grants. So when we looked into Erie One, there was a source of our policies. There's a brand-new policy just coming out, we think largely in response to these grant reviews that are going on. This information is required to be sent to the state mid-November, so we're hoping to be able to advance the stages of this new policy, maybe between now and November 1st, be able to get the policy approved. That's possible.
Okay. We're in one. Well, we can, we'll move it up to 2 and maybe 3 next meeting. Hopefully Ms. Dion will be with us. And that, will
Yeah.
that put us at,
I
You're
think that's what
looking
we're
for the
looking for,
first?
to put it on stages 2 and 3 at the next meeting.
Yeah.
and
And
approval?
Let's still give Liz an opportunity.
Sooner
All right,
too, yeah.
can we just reach out to Ms. Dion and make sure she's aware that that's where we're going with it? And if she has any questions, present them before
Okay.
to all of us so we can all look at them, all right? If that's where you're looking to go with it. And we're under pressure to do it by the November 1st,
I think just so that we're able to submit the required documentation.
okay,
Be-
all right. So we can send that special to Liz, Jackie, right?
Yeah.
Just make her aware of it, so, okay. Anybody else have any concerns or questions about that? No? Okay. That'd be fine. All right. 7512, students' physicals.
I have a question. We had, after the Public Works session, gone back and asked Tara Algerio-Vento a couple of questions and just clarification. I still don't think I'm clear on how, during a physical, they might assess if the child might need the sickle cell anemia test. Is there some outward symptoms or signs or some?
Can you give us a location in the?
I'm sorry. Well, it's in a couple of places, to be honest. It's on the first page and it's on the third page. But the third page specifically, it says each examination will include about the BMI, and then after that, shall determine whether a one-time test for sickle cell anemia is necessary or desirable. And I just don't know if I'm still clear on
Right.
how.
I don't know that I could tell you what exactly she looks for, but the symptoms, the family background, the family history she takes, and she finds that that test is indicated, then she refers those students out to a doctor. If they don't have insurance or there's a financial issue, she finds clinics that would be able to help the family out, either public health clinics or the hospital also has charity organizations and charity clinics.
So then, on the first page where it says that under the health certificate that we would state the results of any test conducted on the student for sickle cell anemia, do we need to report whether we sent the child for an outside test or only the results of, so we would have to put
We'd
that
have to
through
report that as
regardless?
well. Mhm.
Okay. That was my only other question. Thank you.
Anybody else? Move it up. 7513, administration of medication. Our issue was alcohol. We had one issue of alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer.
But we cleared that all up, right?
Yeah.
Any questions?
No.
No? All right, we'll move that up. 7513 regulation, guidelines for guidelines for administering medication in schools. Nothing. Any questions?
No, we went to
Any
the-
questions? Okay, move that up. 7513F, parent, person, and parental relationship with prescriber, authorization for administration of medicine, of medication, release form. So it's really the release form for parents, but then,
Yeah. This is new, this is the new form that's coming out now that parents are going to have to fill out. It's different than what we've done in the past.
The health form is new. This is,
It's the same, this is the same one?
no, this is a release form to be able to,
Self-administer or have the nurse administer? Yep.
So we've always
It
had
looks a little
we've always had a
different.
form of it,
Yeah.
this is just a modification.
No, it looks
Yeah.
different, yeah.
Any questions? All right, I'm moving that one up. 5660, School Food Service Program, lunch and breakfast.
That's on for approval.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, so we're not even going into that. All right. Thank you. You all right, both of them? All right, Dr. Johnson, opportunity for superintendent?
Yeah, I had a few things I just wanted to mention. I wanted to reiterate what Dr. Leahy said about the health fair on Saturday. I really think it's a great idea for the community. It's really become a real community event, not just a school district event. So, number two, I know we celebrated this evening our music program. We had something on robotics, but I received notification today from Carol Rosetto that as we wind down the fall season, a number of our teams really have done very well and are moving on into the playoffs at the county level. Girls tennis, in doubles, two of the girls are actually going to the state championship. But for the county, boys soccer, girls swimming, and cross country. And 3 young men on the golf team actually made it to the counties as well. So my congratulations to all of them. And I wish them all the best of luck in these playoffs. Just for your information, the football team and the volleyball is still into their regular season. So, but if you take a look at their records right now, it looks to me like both teams will in fact be in the playoffs.
It does look that way,
Yep.
yes.
So I think it's been a long time since we had virtually every team that participated is in one or more of the county championships, so, or playoffs. The other thing I just wanted to mention really has to do with voting. You know, this is the season when we need to focus on voting, which is coming up in a few weeks. Probably many of you have read or seen or heard about voting issues in our buildings. There are a number of opportunities for us, I think, possibly, where we know the candidates who are running for office, where we may in fact wish to share with them some of the concerns that we have about the dilemma that we are faced with in schools today. And even though on the Tuesday of Election Day this year, we closed to students, we are certainly open many years for staff. But in the primaries in June and September, we do have some very, very specific problems. And I know that it's not Rockville Center alone. It is we in the county, actually we in the entire state right now. So this is the season to make it known that if we want to see some changes in some of the voting laws that connect schools to votes, I think this is the time. In fact, I don't know that I have all of the solutions. I have been working with the Nassau County election commissions for many years to see if we can't come up with ways in which it can be better managed. But quite frankly, you have to understand the way in which the laws are written right now. They own the schools. They make the decisions. They decide where they want to have the election. And they essentially make that determination. We do not. So the dilemma that we are faced with in an age where security has become so paramount in the lives of our schools, we have to open our doors, and nobody that comes in is in fact checked the way in which we check visitors on a day-to-day basis. So there is this dilemma that we are continually faced with. Well, on the one hand, we really want to encourage our families to participate in voting. It is something that we want our children to learn about. As you know, when we run our election for the school district every year, we have a shadow election. So what we want to do is to make the election a family affair. We want children to develop the habit early on in their lives of coming to vote. And so we consider it an exceedingly important part of an adult's commitment to their community. Yet at the same time, we are also called upon to make sure that we provide a very secure environment for all of our kids every day. And we don't know who's coming in to vote on any. And so we really need to work with our Board of Elections. We need to work with our elected officials. And this is the time for us, I believe, to ask them to consider when and if they go back into session, and they will shortly after the election, to consider changing the laws, or at least begin to engage us in a conversation about where those laws should go. Some examples, I mean, it's as silly as it may seem, bathrooms are a huge problem. And so we have suggested that when they come with all of their workers, they arrive with a porta potty. I'm not joking, because people coming through our buildings and using our bathrooms with your children are a problem for us, as they are with virtually every school in Nassau County. We've also asked the question, you know, this past year we always thought that Tuesday was a sacrosanct day for voting. This year it was a Thursday. So if they can move it to Thursday, why not a Saturday or a Sunday? Why not a weekend? And so there are ways in which, if they choose to use our schools, that elections can in fact be modified. And I'm not talking about election day in November, which it's in statute, so it's there. But I am talking about the other opportunities for running primary elections in June and September. At any rate, all I'm saying is that every candidate who's running should have this on their radar screen. And I think we as school officials, as parents, when we have the opportunity to address any of the candidates who are in fact engaged in running for office, this is the time to ask them to consider this when and if they get elected, when it goes back into session, which will happen in January, to put this on their radar. We really need to discuss this. This is a very, very important issue. So that's it for my remarks.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
You know, as a Board of Education, we are very frustrated on primary day. When you go to our front door, you need to show your license. When you go to the gym door, you can just walk in. So it's a conflict for us. It's been a conflict for years. We have spoken to our legislators, and they're like, we can't do it, we can't do it. But so when that Senate candidate or that representative candidate comes ringing your doorbell or shaking your hand on the training platform, say, we want this, make it happen. This is going to make our schools safe. We're trying to make our schools safe, but you're not giving us the ability on those specific days. That's the only way. We can't do it. Like Dr. Jensen says, they own the building on those days. They have the privilege of doing what they want. So it's our elected officials in New York State that can make that change for us. So please remember when you're shaking their hand, change the voting in the schools. Do something about it. We need to do that to make our schools that much safer. So.
Mrs. Barry?
I just wanted to congratulate all of the students that were recognized tonight. I think having the students here and celebrating them, from the kids that were the National Merit Scholars and commended students, to Quinn and Anna speaking so eloquently about their passion for robotics, to the chamber choir. It just kind of reminds us why we do what we do. So it was great to have them here tonight, and I thank all of them for spending some of their time with us. Thank you to Dr. Johnson for your kind remarks, and to the PTA for the delicious cookies. Always nice to end our night with that. Thank you to Dr. Leahy and Dr. Pelletieri for your presentation on mental health. Such an important topic that continues to be part of our national discourse, and it's really important to see how we are handling it here in Rockville Center. So thank you very much for that. Had an opportunity to attend the homecoming parade on Saturday. Such a great community event. We got to see the students in all different capacities, and the floats, so much time went into making them, and it was such a fun opportunity to see the community come out and just support our students. And I want to wish the best of luck to all of our student athletes, Dr. Johnson mentioned, there's so many of them entering playoff season, so best of luck to all of them. Thank you.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. Ditto, ditto. And it was very fun. The homecoming parade was really a lot of fun, and it's just the energy, the excitement is so great to be a part of. So that was just awesome, and it's so nice to see the kids and be part of it. So thank you for letting us be part of that, marching in the parade. It's really fun. It's nice to see the kids and be a part of that. Also, thank you for all of the recognition this evening. It's so awesome to see the students, to listen to the choir, to the chamber singers. It really makes you take a step back and think about this is what we're here for. We're here for the students, and really to watch all their hard work right in front of us. The robotics, they spoke so beautifully, and that's what we're here for. That's the important thing. So I think that that's so nice that we get to see that at these meetings. So we thank all of them. Thank you to Tom Recupero. And that was really very touching. And he's been here a long time, and it means a lot. So thank you for everyone that came out, and congratulations to him. No, you hit a lot of things. And remember to go to the fitness fair. That's coming up on Saturday. That's always fun. The kids love going to that, so that's always great. And thank you for your presentation tonight. I think it's important that we all really are understanding what's happening to our children with our children. Mental health is a huge, huge issue facing our society today, and something we as parents really need to know more about. So thank you.
Thank you. Homecoming, the homecoming game, the health and wellness fair, all bring our community together, and that's what makes Rockville Center stand apart from other communities. We need to do more of that. We need to bring our community into our school and make everybody feel like they're a part of everything. I think it's a great thing to have these events, and it's great when the public gets involved. It just makes such a good, solid feeling, and it's part of what we're all about. From our singers to our athletes, that also makes Rockville Center a great place, because it gives our students, you know, an opportunity more than just the academics they can learn in their classrooms. It gives them the opportunity to do other things and shine somewhere, shine outside that grade point. So it just makes us all proud to see that happen. And just Quinn and Anna, that just, it was amazing to listen to them speak, how they could speak so clearly and have a focus and all that. It's just amazing. So that's where I'll leave it. That's Mrs. Hackett.
The spirit of appreciation, thank you, everybody, and thank you to the PTAs. Congratulations to Mr. Recupero for his decades of service, and thank you. And also congratulations to Mr. Murphy and the high school team for their recognition of the National Blue Ribbon School. Such an honor. I was really impressed with all the students here tonight. I love the Chamber Singers. It's one of my favorite things that we do. So thank you for that. I'd like to take a minute to address our SEP friends, SEP population. Again, in the spirit of appreciation, thank you. Thank you for the letters and the candor. You always show so much, care and honesty in your letters and in your meetings, and thank you for letting us be a part of it. I didn't want you to, walk away feeling that your concerns were not added to this agenda for any reason except that it would have been squeezed into a very large agenda, as you could see. So that's why we have designated time on the December 5th agenda to address some of the concerns that have been brought forward. I just would like to reiterate that every one of us, even the one who's home with her foot up, there's not one person up here that doesn't care about your children, not one. And we are doing our homework, and we're working very hard to work as a team to address these concerns and give this issue the time that it deserves. So I hope you understand why we answered you and letting you know that there would be time on the December meeting. I just put myself in your shoes, and I wanted you to understand, because I know every minute and hour and day and week in the month of your child's life seems like an eternity at times, and though we're asking for more time, it's not in vain. It's to do our homework and do right by what you've asked us to look into. So I hope you understand that. It's important to us. No decisions here are made in a vacuum, not ones in the past, not ones in the future. That's our job, and that's what we do, and we do it because we want to, not because we have to. So I hope you understand that. You're, of course, welcome to come to the mic and bring any questions and concerns that you have. We just ask that you don't bring any personal names to the table of your own students, of teachers, of staff. But this is our Board of Ed meeting, and that's, your prerogative to speak if you'd like. And I'd like to just, one thing I wanted to add for Mr. Pelletieri, since you gave us such a good breathing exercise. When you get to that light, you have to make a hard left toward the hospital, then make a very quick right, or North Village, and keep going and gun it so that you don't get a yellow.
Wait a second.
Yes,
So I have tried to make that first left real quick because I can't catch that second arrow.
Forget the second one. Don't do that. Don't veer
Oh, a lot
onto
of cars make a
Peninsula.
hard left. Yeah, where are they
Make a
going?
hard
They're
left
going into
to
the hospital.
Go to the hospital.
And then you make a quick
And
right.
Make a very hard right. So
I've been doing these breathing exercises
You
for
will
nothing.
thank me tomorrow. But I wanted to just share, since you shared with us.
I've been known as the iPad guy for a couple of years. I won't mind being known as the mindfulness guy. That's a little bit better, I think. Thank you. Wow. Look out tomorrow morning if you're on it.
He'll let you know if it works for him tomorrow.
I will let you know. Thank you.
All right, it's time for opportunity to visitors to speak. I'd just like everybody to ask, everybody to go to the mic, give us your name and address so we know who you are. And I'd like the conversation to come to us because you're really trying to speak to the board and the administration, and it's difficult when it goes back and forth to the audience, and it's disrespectful to the person at the mic. And you're really trying, we're really trying to hear what you're saying and understand what you're saying. So if you could focus the conversation towards us, that would be very helpful for us to move forward with things. So anybody wants to come up, go up to the mic? It's your privilege. And
hello, my name is Karen Burgee, 15 Hendrickson Avenue. I am the SEP Vice President to PTA Council, and I'm here to represent SEP and also myself. For anyone who doesn't know, the past year, SEP has been writing letters and having forums and discussions with the administration regarding several issues that we just want to have looked at and see if we can make better for our special education kids. The last one was it last week? Was that October 4th? Most of SEP left there feeling that we hadn't come to any conclusions, any solutions. Nothing was being moved forward. We were kind of at a standstill. I believe we had an email writing campaign in the past couple of weeks, and I hope that you heard what we said. I heard what you just said. Thank you very much, Tara. And I do hear you, and I do appreciate. But I want to know that on December 5th, that's quite a ways away. Are we working towards something for December 5th? What's in motion? Are we looking at IB? Are we looking at all of the issues we brought to the table?
We're going through the emails. We're going to look at, the items in the emails. We are looking, a majority of the emails were in regards to IB. We're looking at that. We're looking for comparisons over time of what, where we were, what the possibilities are, and we're gonna evaluate all that.
So on December 12th, we can expect to hear, is it going to be a regular board meeting? Is it a presentation?
It will be a regular board meeting, but we will try and keep the agenda down as minimal as possible to give ample opportunity to the SEP community and the discussion to be,
So it will be a discussion or it will be a presentation?
It will be, I'll say both, but a discussion so that we'll ask for comments throughout the meeting, not just being up here and speaking. Not like you won't have to wait till the end of the meeting. We're going to look for your comments and input during the meeting.
Okay. And as far as the IB and what we had discussed in the IB, are we looking solely at 11th grade IB? Because since then, it's come to my attention, and I didn't even realize that the 12th grade is also IB for all, and that they're in the same classrooms. They do have a Regents level IB program, but it's in the same classroom as the IB class, so they're all together learning the same material, but somehow it's differentiated at that level.
I
Is
think
that
that's
correct?
one of the things, Mrs. Burgee, that we can accomplish on December 5th is to, one of the things is to make clearer those unknowns. So between the discussion and the presentation, hopefully we'll be able to make sure everyone understands how those courses work.
And what changes we'll have in those courses? Are we looking at changing some of those things?
We're going to approach it with an open mind. We're going to evaluate.
Okay, so my one suggestion for all of you here, and that what I would hope that you would do, is to Google or look up, however you want to look it up, what a free and appropriate public education is, and realize that you need to do that for all of our children. We need an appropriate education. It is not an advanced education. We're not looking for an advanced diploma for our children. We're looking for an appropriate Regents diploma for some of our children. So we need a pathway for them to get there. So if you can just look into what an appropriate way for our kids to get there, that would make me very happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name's Liz Walter, 28 Dorchester Road. And thank you. You know, being here and seeing everything, again, reminds us, you know, what a great school district this is. And everybody here makes it the great school district it is. It's a Herculean task. So thank you. My 4 children who are in the school district benefit from the great academic programs, the sports programs, the music programs, and I'm grateful. I do have a concern, but before I do, I just want to show you something really nice that my daughter did, and read a very brief quote. This is something she did last year. It's German words A to Z. She made a little kind of booklet in school, and it was very nice. And I'd like to read this quote. In a world that is rapidly becoming independent, command for world languages is more necessary not only for travel, but politics, industry, commerce, etc. The increasing number of various language groups within the U.S. has created a critical need in many careers for persons trained in world languages. The study of world languages can provide practical communication skills and understanding of other cultures. Your choice of college or employment will be wider as a result of world language study. And I've addressed this before in various forums, and I'm concerned, as I've stated, there is a group of students that rightfully so are foreign language exempt because of significant English language deficits. Because they're English deficits, they're exempt from foreign language, and this is indeed the right decision. It's made generally in 6th grade. American Sign Language would be a great language for these students to participate in, and I really think that the board should consider bringing American Sign Language into the course of study in the high school. My concern is, as you know, it's been discussed before, that colleges, many colleges want foreign language, a year of foreign language, sometimes 2 years of foreign language in their high school, on their high school transcripts in order to be accepted into colleges. There are some exceptions, but I think this is important, and I think it's something we should consider. And I know it's been discussed. I know that, Dr. Leahy, I think in your notes you said that colleges understand that understand the foreign language exemption. And from my research, what I found is that colleges either make the student take a foreign language when they get there, or make them take additional remedial English classes in place of the foreign language. So my concern is that in a district where we're trying to set our kids up for the best possible success when they leave here, that they really would benefit from, for many of this type of student, from American Sign Language, because for a kid with an English language deficit, you're not using letters, you're using signs. And I think that it would be beneficial. I know also at one of the forums in June, Mrs. Levy said, well, students can take foreign language. They can go into Spanish 2 or French 2 when they come to the high school. My concern with that is that you're a year and a half away from a Regents when you enter that class. For special ed students, there's not a special ed teacher in the classroom to assist the special ed student. I mean, having high school kids, and I know some of you have or had high school students, I wouldn't put my gen ed students in French 2 with absolutely no prior knowledge or experience. I've done some research among the other school districts in Nassau County, and I think we're the only school district that would allow a student to enter foreign language 2 without any prerequisite. I don't think that is the best course of action. There are many school districts on Long Island that do provide American Sign Language as a course of study. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have to say. If you have any questions for me, I would be happy to try to answer them. But I think that it is something that the Board of Ed should definitely consider. I think it would benefit our kids.
Have you looked into, is sign language an acceptable language at the college level?
Some colleges, it depends.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. Jericho offers it, Roslyn, Syosset, Hewlett, Great Neck Schools, Plainview, other schools as well. Oh, okay, Oceanside.
And that could end up on their transcript that
Yes.
help them get into it, help somebody get
Again,
into
it
school.
depends on what school you're applying
Right.
to, but it is recognized by some colleges as an acceptable foreign language. It is also the 4th most spoken language in the U.S. behind, I believe, Spanish, English, and Chinese, I believe. And again, you're talking about, you know, inclusiveness, a community where people are more, you know, people are more mainstream, and you have people with disabilities and things like that that could, that people could communicate with. So this is not even just something for special ed students, by the way. I think there might be some gen ed students as well who might be interested in American Sign Language. So I think it's something you should
My
consider.
grandmother, Philomena, spoke Italian Sign Language.
Yes. I'm sure.
Thank you.
But, and again, thank you. This is a wonderful school district and a wonderful place, and I thank you for all of your continued efforts.
Thank you, Liz.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Peterson. I reside at 407 Hempstead Avenue in Rockville Center. I'm the Southside High School SEP rep, and I wanted to start out first with Mr. O'Shea. You stated that you asked us to go out and meet our legislators and to work to changing the school voting on the premises. You said you can't do this, the board can't do this on its own, the administration can't do it, you need us. And what I want to point out is that SEP came to you over a year ago and said we needed the Board of Ed to help us make some pivotal changes to our district's program. SEP said we couldn't do it on our own. We needed our Board of Ed. And I want to note and say thank you. You have supported us, you have assured us, and you have encouraged us over this last year and a half. And that's meant more to us. You come to our meetings, you hear our members, and you take common sense approaches to things, and you've shown a sincere effort to help us this past year and a half to get to this point. So thank you. That's what I wanted to start with. I know we did a lot of emails the last 2 weeks, and I sent an email to the board basically summarizing some of the things we want. And I think what we're looking for at SEP is options. We have what we consider a one-size-fits-all inclusion program. And unfortunately, if you take a look at what inclusion and what it encompasses, the diversity of our student in the inclusion program, the needs are very different. And one-size-fits-all doesn't work for most situations. Some of the options we're looking for is, and we talked about this at our last meeting that you were present at on October 4th, there's a couple of the members of the board were present. We would like to have some of the related services, PT, OT, speech, provided before school or after school in certain situations. What we find is that when you get into kindergarten, when you have a young child, there's the academic rigor isn't as intense, the learning isn't as intense, and you're able to do those, pull the child out for the OT twice a week, twice a cycle, the PT twice a cycle, the speech twice a cycle. Then you start adding social therapy as well, and they get pulled out for that. By the time you get into 3rd grade, when we're really working on more important subjects and a harder curriculum, to have 4 to 6 pullouts every 6 weeks, every 6 days is a lot of pullouts from important classes. And it makes sense, and it's been done in certain situations. It's been done by parents that have fought hard for it. I know of a mother that fought hard and got it in Southside Middle School before she transferred from Watson only 2 years ago. So to have it before school or after school, and I understand that there was an issue that certain union workers, certain full-time staff can't do it, but contract employees could do it. We could hire more contract-related service providers who have a flexible schedule to help do that. I've reached out to certain advocates that represent parents here, and they said there is no any way that unions can prohibit having these services provided to our children. I just think it's not necessarily in the early years, but it's 3rd grade and up when you start to see that, if you think of your child being pulled out. I stopped, pulling out recently for something that my child would be pulled out of his physics, out of his IB classes. It begins to, if you can think of a more, being pulled out of math, being pulled out of ELA, those are important classes to miss. So if we can come up with common sense strategies, we're not saying every child, we're saying at a certain grade, we recognize that the work gets harder, and it's, we recognize that we want the child in the classroom. And it may be a child that has more pullouts that we allow this for. Just start to use these common sense approaches to our situations, and not this hard line that doesn't make sense. That's one thing. We'd like our special ed students to have the information to know that they can seek either a Regents diploma, which is 5 regions, or an advanced Regents diploma. We don't want to be on a track. Everyone have to be on a track for an advanced Regents diploma. It's just not for everyone. That seal that you get for the advanced Regents diploma, I don't know if you remember if you even had it after you graduated. You don't tout it on your resume. It's of very little significance after you graduate. What is significant is that you understood what you learned, that you were able to apply it, and that you are able to go into the workforce and get a job. Another option that we want is that we would like our special ed students that pass a region class but fail a region exam. A region exam in Rockville Center at the end of a school year is computed to 10% of a student's grade. If they pass the class, but when that region is added, it results in a fail, especially when that region isn't needed because they're going for a Regents diploma and not an advanced Regent diploma. We would like them to either have the option of being given a final exam in the class so that they can proceed, or have the school adopt a do no harm policy, where if the region exam causes harm, we won't compute it into your final grade, and you'll be allowed to continue on with the rest of your class, go on to the next level. You won't be forced to sit for a regent that you didn't need or you don't need because you simply, that grade caused you to fail a class that you passed. So a do no harm policy or give a final exam in place of that regent. Another thing I think we've talked endlessly about is we want to get rid of the mandate that all students, including special ed students, take the IB ELA and IB history in the 11th grade. And it appears that it'll be clarified, but it goes into the 12th grade as well. I think, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, but it's hypocritical to promote mental health and ignore the reality of an inappropriate curriculum mandate for our special ed student body. To sit here, and I think your definition of mental health, the one that you posted by the state, the first screen on the thing said, the mental health it deals with students being faced with normal stressors. How do we take certain special ed students that are there because they have a learning deficit and put them in what's akin to an AP honors class? It doesn't make sense. It's not a normal stressor. It causes anxiety. These children are often, because of their neurological other issues, prone to anxiety or already have anxiety. I think you have an ethical obligation in rolling out this mental health thing to say, what's the appropriate curriculum? How does this impact their mental health? It's not enough for you to have a family fitness fair. It's not enough. It's great. I think it's awesome. But curriculum matters, and appropriate curriculum matters. Some children with a special ed designation will be able to take your program, but many won't. And as we said before, there's 5 support classes for your 11th grade ELA IB class. 5. I know of a child with an IEP who attends BOCES in the morning who can't get that support class because those students, and you would think the BOCES kid would be the one that needs it most. When they come back, their day is so short, they can't get the support class. So here they are in a totally inappropriate setting, mandated by the school, and they don't have the support class. That's, again, it doesn't work. You have 5 support classes because you're trying to make something fit that doesn't fit. It's not the best situation. A Regents class, level class, could be a beautifully written curriculum that goes slow, that would nail down and help them master skills, become better writers, better at what they do. You go slow, reduce the volume, practice the essays, really develop their writing skills. Focus on what's really important for the Regent and for college readiness at the right pace. Those kids will excel. And as my friend Liz Walters said, parents would like options for foreign language classes and/or sign language when their children who are foreign language exempt enter the high school. As a final note, and I put it. This is all in my email to the board to summarize all the emails that you received this week. Sort of just a something easy for you to look at. I do think we need to take a look, and the board should consider getting updates every year per grade of how many students are 2 years behind in reading. It should be something that's done. I know we're going to shortly change administrations. It should be done from this point forward. You should know per grade how many students are 2 years behind in reading. And I think you need to be, I'm an attorney. I'm very careful in how I define things. I'm very cautious in who defines them. I think you need to come to an agreement in what is the definition of behind? What test are we going to rely upon to make that determination? We have a lot of students opt out. What's an appropriate way to determine who, with accuracy per grade, which students are behind 2 years in reading? And then we need to develop the appropriate remediations. It's often the parents that are coming to their CSEs and saying, when did you last test my child for their reading? What are we doing? It should be the district that runs this. You don't want to be a district with last year at our Southside High School forum, there were about 4 children that I didn't even know of. All awesome. Some of them major lacrosse players, everything, reading at an elementary school level. It's shocking. You haven't tried all the remediations. You don't know what you've tried. You don't know what's being done. I think the board needs to be more involved so that we increase the number of our students. They may never read at grade level, but they certainly should read at middle school level or as close to capacity as possible. And to say that the district is now rolling out, they're training people in Wilson. I believe Wilson training, from what I've reached out to people, it can amount to 3 hours. How does a 3-hour training session result in a competent reading intervention specialist? I want you to really start to look at the data you're being given. Ask, go to outside, sources and say, what's appropriate here? What is Wilson training? What is it really? How long are they trained? What's Wilson certified? What do you do for a child with dyslexia at the elementary school versus the middle school level? What are other schools doing? Is Wilson the appropriate thing? We don't know. I can't tell you. You guys don't know. I don't think our administration, in all fairness, are reading specialists. They're not. So we should have an independent reading specialist that's a consultant to guide us on the appropriate measures. And I promise you, in 5 years, if you start to do this and track if your numbers are going down and if these children are reading at more appropriate levels, you couldn't have done anything better as a board to get a child closer when they're at graduation to their reading competency than anything. That's the most rewarding thing and most promising thing that you can do for a student. The last thing I want to point out is that, and I talked to Dr. Johnson, he was awesome with this. I think we should begin, and this is for general ed too, considering laptops in high school. I think it's kind of, my oldest son went to Xavier High School. He was encouraged to bring his laptop. To have our children that are going to college working on a tiny iPad and having to do this at night isn't college ready. And moreover, for a special needs population, I can tell you that they don't go onto a laptop. So that he doesn't have the typing skills. He doesn't always know what the flash drive is. He doesn't understand everything. You guys could really, if you start these kids, when they walk in, getting a laptop, these kids will be college ready. That's a college readiness. It's not an iPad at this grade. From 9th grade on, iPads are not what is appropriate for a district like this, and for students to be college ready. Let's give them real college-ready skills. Let's get them on this technology. This is an appropriate technology for a school setting, as opposed to maybe a cell phone. But a laptop should be what we change to. And Dr. Johnson was very encouraging about that, and I appreciate that. And I thank you again. You guys have been amazing, and we do feel that we're frustrated, but we do feel that you've heard us and you have worked with us. And I hope you can refer to my email when you are preparing for the 12-5 meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Erica Messier. I live at 493 Rose Lane. I wanted to start off by thanking the board. My daughter, Ryan, is in 1st grade at Covert School, and we're super appreciative of the decision to split that class, as I think it's been meaningful for her and will continue to be. But I do have a question. I'm not a SEP parent, but I was very shocked to hear about the concerns that SEP has about how the middle school and the high school is structured for all students. I teach in a middle school that's a highly competitive school, and we do not accelerate all of our students. We accelerate the students who have proven readiness to be accelerated. I teach 7th and 8th grade, and I was shocked to hear that, because I think of my own students, and I cannot imagine them being successful to the extent that they could be if they were just given the time they needed to take those courses. And I guess it also leads back to the whole class size issue. In a district that's accelerating everyone, regardless if they've proven they're ready to be accelerated in math and science in the middle school, and then it seems as if in social studies and English in the high school, which was news to me. Why are the class sizes in the elementary schools, specifically K through 3, so large? I know the number you cap at is 25. Where does that number come from? Because if you look at any research, if you want students to perform at or above grade level, class sizes should be a max of 15 to 18, which 25 is significantly higher than that. So if we're accelerating everyone, why aren't we preparing them from the foundation to be slightly more successful than they may or not already be able to. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I want to know is why is it 25? That's huge. I don't know any other, the district I teach in does not have 25 students in a kindergarten, first grade, second, or third grade class. After third grade, there's no statistical difference on class size, but K through 3 there is. So where does 25 come from? That's my question.
Dr. J?
For as long as I've been in the district, it's been 25.
Okay.
We've had a number of committees look at it over the years, and if we went to 15 per class, we would not be able to accommodate.
That I understand. The schools are only as big as they
If you took a look
are.
at Covert and went to 15 per class,
They wouldn't fit.
no.
But then, okay,
And that's universally true throughout the entire district.
okay.
So I can tell you that we've had a number of committees over the years look at it. The question is not a new one. It comes up periodically. And I think everybody in the school district recognizes that smaller classes would be probably a good idea, but there has never been the will to change it from 25.
So if there isn't an ability to change it due to the structure of the schools and the size, maybe that leads into a conversation about changing what we expect from students as they get older. As if we can't provide them with that foundation to be advanced, that maybe we don't advance everyone. I don't know, it's just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Good evening, everybody. Try and be brief. Thank you, everybody, for staying tonight and for allowing us to speak to the board this evening. My name is Denise Woodbury, 54 Royal Court, Rockville Center. I noticed that the letter that I wrote to the Board of Ed was out there, and I appreciate that. But I thought just to share that with some of the folks here, and as you go into your meetings about the curriculum appropriate for our special ed community, it would make sense to share it at this point. So thank you. You know, having graduated from Rockville Center Public Schools, I returned so that my children could receive the same superior education that I had so many years ago. The impact that Southside made on me was never forgotten. From AP English to Adelphi Psychology, to a trip to France, to accounting, to public speaking, and really an elective that impacted me the most my senior year was Modern American Lit. It didn't have a final. It didn't have a Regents. It didn't have an IB. It didn't have an AP. But it's something that made me, love learning. And that's really why we're here. You know, we want to set our kids up for success in the future, whether it's college or not. But to have that the appreciation of that lifelong learning is really the point of our education. And we have to remember that. And we have to remember that with our special ed community as well. And, going through the last 6 years, I've looked and listened and come and attended these meetings and been very quiet about it, but I've heard a lot. And what I have found is that currently Rockville Center School District has adopted a single path to the high school diploma with very little options to thrive, specifically impacting our special ed kids. Given its radical departure from traditional public school curriculum, I request that it is time to revisit that decision and impact on our special ed kids. I can consider the goal that IB is an accelerated program for all children to reach for. I get it. I can agree that teachers are doing their best to help all students. What I question, though, is the value of IB curriculum to students with learning deficiencies and disabilities who continue to struggle in general ed settings. Simply put, the workload is impeding the special ed students' ability to find their strengths and their passion and encourage the pursuits while balancing a path to a high school diploma. Imagine if you are blind and you are asked to write a 2,000-word essay and run a PowerPoint. How is this a fair and appropriate education meeting the needs of our students? The data presented at the last SEP meeting, Dr. Leahy, I can appreciate, but it doesn't tell the whole story, as data doesn't always do. It never does. In order to thrive in IB, students with learning deficiencies and disabilities must take support classes, lots of them, and then they are isolated. In order to thrive in IB, students with learning deficiencies and disabilities do not have time in their schedule to accommodate their interests or their electives. They are therefore isolated. In order to thrive in IB, students with learning deficiencies and disabilities are isolated in the integrated general ed class, given they are not successful there. They feel isolated within their peers. They feel like a dummy, and the stressor is there. The rate of curriculum taught is sped up to accommodate the IB program. It's all building up to this IB program. Right from middle school, where we have our IB middle school education. Special ed students need at the very least a normalized path, more likely a slower presentation of key concepts and building blocks. That will set them up for success. How are we fostering our children's strengths? What are the choices in public education in our district? Where did BOCES go? That was great. What happened to Regents level classes? Why does a child with an aptitude for advanced math need to take IB English? Why is there no requirement to receive credits in coding? Why can you walk out of Southside without coding credits? Even our special ed children need that. I work in tech. You need it. You might not need college, but you definitely need technology. Surely there needs to be options, and especially for our special ed population. I agree with Dr. Leahy. We don't want our special ed kids hidden away. I fully concur. But we must balance isolation with providing pathways to success. This is our school district. I took that from your quote about a couple weeks ago. We need a voice in the rollout of public education curriculum, especially as it relates to the success of the special ed kids. Thanks for your consideration. And I'm a big supporter of Rockville Center, so thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Members of the board, Dr. Johnson, good evening. My name is Sean Barry. I live at 38 Hampton Court in the village of Rockville Center. No relation to Kelly Barry, by the way, although our girls have certainly crossed paths many times. I come to you today as a member of the St. Agnes Cathedral School Board. Ann Durnan, who is the president of that school board, has asked me to be a liaison to the RVC schools for this school year. So I simply wanted to do one thing and one thing only, which was to open a line of communication between our two boards. I believe that we certainly have a tremendous amount of overlapping interests and things that are of concern. Things such as federal and state education standards, issues of busing, issues of security, things that we can perhaps collaborate on. I have no specific issues other than to simply open that line of communication as appropriate. And I can give the district clerk my contact information. I do plan on trying to attend as many school board meetings as I can. So look forward to working with you in whatever way makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you very much for your comments. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion to approve financial reports as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to acknowledge receipt of financial reports as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Or any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Can I have a motion to accept items for action, A through F, and the addenda, is it one addendum or two addendums?
There's
Addendum to the PAR and an addendum to the
agenda.
agenda. Can I have that motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to, to adjourn into executive session for discussion of specific personnel, contractual, and litigation matters?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And thank the PTA for the goodies and